feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled movie review. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Well, I do declare, Matt, it is a scorcher out here. It's actually quite chilly.
I haven't found those KFC Ruffles yet.
Yeah. Were you thinking about that while you were watching the film?
A little bit. I love his accent. It's fantastic.
That Southern hokum.
Yes, today we are reviewing Rian Johnson's Glass Onion, A Knives Out mystery. Which, you know what, in the film they never put the Knives Out mystery, thank God.
Yeah.
But for SEO purposes, I think that will help both people find this review and find it on Netflix when it comes out in December.
Yeah. And I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation about both the film and our stances on it, because the last time we were at the festival when the first Knives Out came to TIFF,
I had a little bit of a spicy take.
You were a little bit lukewarm at best.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a spicy take. And I just want to start by going, we're not going to spoil anything.
No.
Like, it'll be spoiler free. We haven't even watched the teaser trailer that came out, but we won't spoil any of the mysteries, any of the cameos, any of anything. We're just going to kind of dance around everything and just give you our overall thoughts on the movie. But going back to what you just said, yeah, you know what? When Knives Out, we saw that at the same theater, the same day, the same time, they said, basically, when Knives Out premiered. And I was a little soft on it. But I gotta say, Eric, after watching Glass Onion, I'm second-guessing myself because I absolutely loved this. So.
Yeah, it's you know, this is a Netflix produced sequel. There was a lot of conversation and buzz when Netflix picked up the rights to the film that was originally released by Lionsgate for two sequels. So Glass Onion is the first of two, first of two. And so with that, you know, it was kind of like, oh, Netflix is, you know, we've talked about this on the regular podcast and other reviews where like Netflix trying to find a, you know, populist franchise to kind of create has been a bit of a struggle for them. You know, you've seen everything from the Adam Project to the Old Guard and everything in between. And it's been one of those things where I think they finally were able to cut deep into something that works and find those layers in what I think you'll agree is a very entertaining, not even necessarily just a murder mystery, but just a fun character study. And it's one of those films where you're watching it. It is 2 hours and 19 minutes, but it does fly by.
Oh my God, it flew by, man.
It's so well constructed. Rian Johnson is a very reactionary filmmaker. You know, we're not going to spoil anything, but I think we should maybe discuss that it does take place during the pandemic, and it is like the first Knives Out, reacting to kind of, you know, the now. Yeah. Like with the first one, it was very much taking, you know, toxic masculinity and online sort of criticism and trolls to task in response to The Last Jedi, as well as also just, you know, the world we live in now. And that is the case with this. What is also refreshing and completely you know, a complete relief here is that the pandemic aspect doesn't weigh the movie down. Like, you're not taken out of the fun.
I was worried at first, Eric.
Yeah.
I like going back to how I felt about Knives Out. This begins the two women in front of us just making me absolutely lose my mind because they were like on their phone the whole time talking, leaning over, so they were blocking part of the screen. So that maybe contributed to it a bit, but as the movie began, I was like, oh no, I don't like this. I'm like,
split screens,
it's COVID stuff. Yeah. Like, I just like, it felt almost too in the now, and then some of the kind of introductions to the characters and, like you said, the cameos, some of the humor in those first moments was pretty rough for me. And I was real worried. But then the movie kind of gets its legs when it kind of gets away from that. It goes to Greece, which we know from we know it takes place in Greece, from the teaser and from just knowing about the production. I think the movie finds itself, finds its mystery and its what its social commentary is, and I think it just fucking sails from there. And it's so good.
Yeah, and it's one of those films where it does take a minute, and like you, I was worried that it was almost becoming a parody of itself, like the first movie, but it's just like almost like, okay, let's just make this a complete and utter joke. But as soon as you kind of not only Grease, but I think it's at the end of kind of the introduction of the ensemble cast.
Yeah, you settle into it.
Yeah, because this is not spoiler, but you know the cast of suspects are all invited to a island vacation in Greece from a kind of Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos kind of esque character played by Edward Norton, who is amazing as this guy, and Edward Norton's always been a very serious actor usually, but when he does lighten up
and have fun,
whether it be The Italian Job, which his character in that is quite similar to this, or even Birdman, where he's kind of poking fun at his own image, his own self-image, he can, I've always liked him as an actor, but
Same.
I think he gets in his own way, and when we reviewed...
A little too self-serious sometimes.
Something
right?
like Motherless Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, oh God.
Exactly. But here, he's kind of amazing in that role, and then Craig really is having so much fun as Benoit Blanc again, but really kind of embracing the campy, hammy side of that kind of Southern charm. And Janelle Monáe
crushing
has
it, man.
Very tricky role, not because of her, but because with some of the script, I think it could have backfired.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it does, both the performance and Rian Johnson's writing and direction know where not to fall.
Yep.
And it is one of those movies where it is so opulent in its design and its
the Glass Onion property itself is just
you can tell it's like a Netflix production, because they spent every this is probably why they had those board meetings where it's we have to crack down on,
because they spent so much money. They paid Rian Johnson $100 million, rumored, we don't know any of this, Ram Bergman $100 million, the
producer,
and Daniel Craig $100 million for these two movies.
Yes.
And then you got to think the budget to the movie's got to be probably $100 million.
Yeah, and then some of those cast members don't come
gotta
cheap.
cost. That's part of the whole production cost. But I think the standouts for me are Daniel Craig, Janelle Monáe, and Ed Norton. So you already kind of brought them up. But I think the whole cast is absolutely fantastic.
Catherine Hahn, and Kate Hudson, Dave Bautista, Jessica Henwick.
Just all crushing it.
Yeah.
Just absolutely crushing it. They all meld so perfectly together. The mystery unravels in such creative, fun ways. And much like the first Knives Out, which I didn't hate, I just was kind of indifferent on it, or soft on it. I thought it was fine, and I want to go revisit it after this. But I think even in that movie, Rian Johnson is very playful with the material. It's zany at times, but then the mystery is dark at times too, and just between
always
the relationships and engaging. And his use of cinema and editing it to
those dollies, man.
Yeah, the dollies. There's some great suspense shots that are both funny and really kind of intense. You know what I'm talking about too. That's just there's you guys will know this shot, but there's one shot in the film that shouldn't. It's just such an ingenious use of an ingredient that is just one of the most suspenseful scenes we've seen this year in cinema,
and the branding of that ingredient as well. And
there's so many good
in
Hollywood jokes, and
product placement and what have you, but capitalism as a whole, right?
I've seen so many movies. Again, a theme in Hollywood lately, much like with Fabelmans, directors doing their own childhoods. A theme of just anti-capitalists and social elites and things like that.
And Parasite, I think, is a big reason why that's happened. And
I think Rian Johnson does a great job with it, because again, I think he understands it. I think he knows how to poke fun at it. And I think this movie just plays out perfectly. And his use of, again, flashbacks and editing to kind of reveal bits and pieces of the story, and you can see it's expertly crafted. But then the other thing I love too is even on the mystery standpoint of things, like he never seems like he's trying to outsmart you. He's just trying to make like a really engaging, fun thriller mystery. Like it's not like it's like, haha, I got you. But
that's
like,
more on you because you're trying to outguess it or figure it out. And even if
you do, and which I think we talked about it, like we eventually kind of came to the conclusion, partway through the movie. But I think the best mysteries, you want your audience to sort of figure it out. We said the same thing with After Party, right? Like this reminded me a lot of that.
After Party, I think, is also influenced by Knives Out because
totally.
In terms of like, talking about anti-capitalist movies, about autofiction, the murder mystery, the Agatha Christie-esque style of filmmaking has been brought back, I think, because of Knives Out being so successful. Because that first movie, even though it has a great ensemble cast, basically a single location, very simply made, and I don't mean that as a slight. I mean just like it cuts out what it needs to and keeps you engaged with a rather satisfying story. And Johnson's doing the same, just with a budget that kind of is more exuberant in its production design and in its casting and in its locations and things like that. It's kind of ingenious in its own way that it's like it's taking money from this major corporation
and
to make
this anti-capitalist
movie where it's almost punk rock in a weird way
and
for
that's
doing
a Ryan
that.
Johnson thing too, man, and that's what I kind of love about it. And there's just so many great lines and moments that are just like had a guttural laughter from us and the theater. And
but also really smart. Like there are moments where it doesn't feel like it's like trying to force some sort of new quote.
Or quote.
There's actually some interesting statements that are made, and I want to go back and write some of them down because I do feel like they are really well thought out, but also kind of come from a very like experienced point of view. You know, like you're watching this and like, okay, like what they're saying isn't just an interesting kind of quip or line that works for the scene or adds to the overall kind of style of the movie, but it is also very much saying something interesting. Like I always think of that line in Men in Black where like it's just a little throwaway line, but it's when Tommy Lee Jones says to Will Smith's character where a person is smart, people are dumb. A person, an individual can be smart, but you put them in a group of people, then like with other people, then that's when you don't think for yourself anymore. I
love that.
Right?
That's perfect for
and
this
that's
movie,
just like a little thing in a blockbuster that's really weird and kind of like just like a commercial sell. But like there are a lot of those in this that kind of feel completely earned, and you're watching it and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I get why he wanted to continue making these movies because he's also a huge fan of The Last of Sheila, which he had actually did a screening of with the original Knives Out when it was here, and Warner Brothers or Warner Archives released it recently on Blu-ray. So if you kind of want to see like that as an influence, which was co-written by Anthony Perkins and Stephen Sondheim, I highly recommend checking that out as well because you can tell where that all comes from. I hope he continues to keep making these movies as long as he wants to.
Like again, it's made me immediately want to go back and I think I gave Knives Out like 3 stars or something like that. Yeah. Like I didn't dislike it. I just was like, oh okay. I think Knives Out is a more traditional murder mystery, even though it has it's subversive in the sense where he still makes it very modern in his own. But this I feel like kind of. It still feels very much like the same because Benoit Blanc and Ryan Johnson's voice and things like that, but it does feel like he's even more playful with the murder mystery aspect in this one. And like I think one of the things in Knives Out where I'm like, I thought it played its hand too early, right? And then it always played catch up for me where I was like, okay, what is the mystery now? And I felt like it wasn't completely satisfying near the end personally because they go, oh well, it's put on as a simple murder mystery but was something more, so maybe I need to go back with that lens and revisit it with that. And this is doing a similar thing, but I think like you said with the budget and the location and just like I felt like even the humor, and I know there's a lot in Knives Out, but I think it just kind of cranks it up to 11 or 12 in a good way. in this movie, where I just was constantly laughing, constantly engaged with the mystery, constantly trying to figure it out, but not really worrying too hard about figuring it out because I was having such a good time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of makes a good murder mystery. You want it to be satisfying, like the solution, and I think it was in this. But then there are some great, moments before that kind of play into, even deconstructing these types of movies and murder mysteries in general, and kind of the meta nature of all of that I actually still really like too.
Yeah, and again, it's not too clever for its own good either, where like it works with both the commentary and the entertainment kind of mixing really well, and like it's not subtle, but at least it's not stepping over itself and sort of explaining what it's doing or how it's trying to kind of go about deducting clues and putting things together and ultimately coming to a very not realistic, but a very entertaining, conclusion. It's one of those films that earns every moment, it portrays on screen. And again, the character beats are great. Another name that we forgot to mention is Leslie Odom Jr. as well, who's really wonderful in the movie. And yeah, it's just interesting to see these actors kind of all play off of each other. Like, I really love the scenes between, Janelle Monáe and Daniel Craig, and then Daniel Craig and Edward Norton, and like even like one like little one-off moment with Edward Norton and Jessica Henwick, where it's just like, her being just like, Kate Hudson's assistant is like, who are you? Like,
exactly.
And that kind of just grandiose assholishness.
Kate Hudson just crushing it too. Yeah, man, I think it goes back to just being playful and Rian Johnson having fun with it. And like, even the way he gets Benoit Blanc involved in the mystery, I think is ingenious, right? Because I guess with these movies, if you still want that suspension of disbelief of like why he would be there, or why, like, right? Like, why is Poirot always around when a murder is happening, right? Why is the world's greatest detective always there? And I think he even plays around with that stuff like in a really, really fun way. And
well, that was Angela Lansbury and Murder, She Wrote. Like, the joke was always, well, Jessica was the murderer. She was the true mastermind behind all the kills.
She was always there, right? So I think that kind of plays into this movie. And, it's got the, he's known for being the world's greatest detective, and even how they kind of like say that, it's just it goes back to a quote we have been quoting from this, of like, it's so dumb, but it is like that dumb smart of like that Rian Johnson I think is really good at. And he's an extremely online guy, and he's an extreme, like, I think he's very in the know with what's going on. So that's why some of that early stuff that we said is a little bit more forgiving, because he kind of wins you back later with some actual, like, again, I complain, a movie we won't be reviewing during TIFF, but I'll talk about it on the post show and stuff, like with the menu, and even I guess to Triangle of Sadness to an extent, right? Of like the social commentary in those movies, all three of those I think are pretty similar. But I think one is having a lot more fun with it in Glass Onion, and all of them are levels of, sort of surface level, but I think this movie does the best job of taking the piss out of all those types of people, and not necessarily giving you like deep social commentary, but at least kind of again doing a fun job taking the piss out of them. So like, I just had an absolute blast. And I know we've done a good job tiptoeing around without saying really anything about the movie, but like,
but why we liked it, like, and how
performances are great, music is fantastic,
dialogue, like, the script crackles at every moment. Like, it's just one of those things where like it does feel like it's not simply just a sequel for sequel's sake. Like, it actually has more intrigue and investment for fans of the first movie, but also in a way kind of outdoes the first film in a lot of ways.
I mean, obviously with my hot take, I think it does, but I do think he even learned from that first movie and made an even better murder mystery. And I tweeted it, and even how I feel about that first movie, like, I'd be cool with Rian Johnson making one of these every couple of years and doing a movie in between that, or something like that. Like, I know he did 2 of these back to back, right? And then for his features.
He's only done 1, because they haven't even announced the cast for a third one.
Sorry, Knives Out and this one, he didn't make a movie in between those 2.
No.
So what I mean is, like, I still hope he jumps around and does something else in between Knives Out mysteries. if they're going to stick with that title.
Or maybe he's going to just do like the Three Knives Out films like all at once, and then kind of maybe take a break from it.
And
because it almost seems like he had like again we haven't read the specifics of like the the announcements when he was given all that money by Netflix to go and make these things, but it almost seemed like it was kind of like, okay, like you after doing this you should go and make this because there's like an obligation or something, like again like contracts, things like that. But I don't know, like maybe he does take a break and does something small or what have you. But Knives Out was a smaller movie. But I almost feel like with him taking that this gig, it's like, okay, well, like you got to do another one, right?
I don't think he would have signed on for 2 unless he had ideas for 2, but it will be interesting to see like what that third one, because again, both movies being very in the now, right? Like where,
and there wasn't I think there was that's the other thing, like again, like going back to the COVID thing, like there was a drastic change in the world to kind of use that as a jumping off point, right, with the pandemic. So with the first one kind of being about like online culture, you can take a wealth of like the last 10 years worth of vitriol from trolls and misogynists and all that, and kind of play with the class system as well, and anti-capitalism and sort of whitewashing and things like that. And with this, like, it feels like, okay, well, like what happened in the world was a big enough dent to justify not only making a sequel, but having something to kind of use as a way to bring us back. So I don't know, like, if he's going to wait for like something else to change, or if there's something that he hasn't touched upon yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what that would be, but who the hell knows until he does it, right? I guess it doesn't have to have some sort of social commentary, but I'm assuming that's what he would want it to have a little bit of. So anyways, it's fantastic. I think it's my favorite thing I've watched at the festival, and that surprises me even. I just think it was that great palate cleanser. It was just that fun, like, I hope this gets a big theatrical release. Like, I know Netflix is putting it in theaters like a month before it comes out in December. Like, it's coming out almost Christmas Day on Netflix, right?
Yeah,
it's
so
23rd, I think.
So it's like the end of October, early November, and they want to keep it in theaters as long as possible, which makes perfect sense because it is a huge crowd pleaser. Like, it is one of those movies that I wouldn't be surprised if it won the People's Choice Award. It definitely is a contender.
I think that or the Spielberg, really, like, I think are the... I mean, that seems like the obvious choices. Like, those seem like the obvious flip a coin kind of things. Like, crowd pleasing. One is just a fun movie. One's a movie about movies and a family drama that's emotional and things like that.
And they're playing The Fabelmans a lot as well, so that does help
Glass Onion.
For
both those movies have 5, 6, 7 screenings when you include PNIs and stuff. So I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I thought I really liked it a lot, man.
That is quite the heel turn.
Yeah, I mean the face turn, really.
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I think like I said with The Fabelmans, I think it will go up on a rewatch. I just want to see those first 20 minutes again.
Yeah, that's fair.
Uninterrupted.
That's where it loses the half star.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily the film's fault. It's more so that we were like so fixated on those two women at the front of us, kind of like, it almost seemed like they were trying to take photos of like celebrities like underneath the balcony or something.
It was that, or they were looking for someone else. Like the other one woman left and then like went to, I think, find someone. Like she kept texting someone, and then like, anyways, we're getting to in the weeds of like where we were sitting, but we were in the middle of a gigantic.
But it did
fucking
disrupt us. it disrupt the screening for us a little bit.
Just call us the disruptors, or them the disruptors. They were the disruptors, not
or
us.
were they?
We don't disrupt anyone.
No.
Or anything. Anyways, thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. Go check out our other TIFF reviews that we have up right now on Untitled Movie Reviews on podcast services and on YouTube. We have reviews up for the aforementioned The Fabelmans. We have another Netflix movie that takes partly place in Greece called The Swimmers,
which could not be further from
the Greece depicted here, or the people depicted in Greece here. We also reviewed Weird. We reviewed
Brother Bros.
I forgot that double feature, Brother and Bros.
I Like Movies.
great stuff. So go check out all of that. Causeway may or may not be up. An interview that Eric did with the director may or may not be up, but it'll all be up soon. So just one-stop shop for everything. Head over to Letterboxd, which is Untitled_movies. And as always, just follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Martin. You can find more of my video reviews on rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Shout out to Daryl.